Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tuesday's version of Take 5, where we've been walking our way through the book of James to find some nuggets, gold nuggets, to help us live life even in these days. Our goal is to go through the entire book of James, and maybe when it's all done, life will be a little bit normal and we can see each other more often. I don't know, but the goal is to go through the book of James. And we are now beginning James chapter 2 today. James chapter 1 was all about finding sort of the good in the trials that we are experiencing. James chapter 2 then begins talking about how do we live well in the midst of the trying times in which we are. And in some ways, James 2 and James 3 are compelling us to live consistently. There's nothing like inconsistency to drive people crazy, right? Whether it's your sports team, like I love the Cleveland Indians, and yet their bats are so inconsistent. Or nothing will drive your kids more crazy. If you're inconsistent, if that was a bad thing today and now it's okay, inconsistency is just not good. And part of what he's going to tell us is inconsistency of living. Spiritual living is not a good thing either. So in chapter 3, he's going to talk about the inconsistencies of our tongue. We'll get there. Today, inconsistency is the subject of how we treat people. Listen, and I bet this applies to every one of us. My brothers and sisters, show no partiality as you hold the faith in our Lord Jesus Christ, the Lord of glory. He just nails it right off the bat. Show no partiality. It's the way we treat people. Some of your translations might have the word favoritism. That's there too. There's a lot going on as he describes that. Sunday in church, we had some friends and we talked about the whole racial issue that our society is dealing with right now. And that's a huge issue. And the problem is this problem. Partiality, favoritism, prejudicism. Right off the bat, show no partiality. So what does he mean, no partiality or no favoritism? Well, on the one hand, it can almost be just a generic idea. I know a conductor of the symphony who is partial to Mozart, so they're always playing Mozart. I know a golfer who's partial to Pinnacle golf balls. That's okay. But when you're dealing with people, it's more than just wanting to go one way or the other. It's now dealing with the idea of a bias or of a prejudice. You know, you could favor, I favor Volkswagens. I've always driven them. That's okay. But if you favor one person over another, maybe there's a bias because of education or a bias because of skin color. That's when he's saying, whoa. It's got to stop right there. And think about that for a minute. Think about the people you run into at the grocery store. Think about the things that you maybe watch on television. Do you have an inclination to prefer one kind of person to another based on the way they look, based on what they have, even based on what they believe? One of the things we talked about on Sunday was two kinds of people in this world. Our neighbors and our fellow believers. Our neighbors, in the sense of the parable of the Good Samaritan, are even people that are much different than us, but we need to love our neighbor as well. And that's where he's going to end this passage that we'll look at tomorrow. So here's what he says. My brothers, show no partiality as you hold the faith in our Lord Jesus Christ, the Lord of glory. Don't be partial. He gives the story. If a man wearing a gold ring and fine clothing comes into your assembly, and a poor man in shabby clothing also comes in, and if you pay attention to the one with fine clothing and say, here, you can have the best seat in the house, while you say to the poor man, stand over here or sit at my feet, have you not made distinctions among yourselves and become judges with evil thoughts? He's talking to the whole assembly of believers now. Remember, they're scattered, but they are meeting. Assembly as a synagogue. He said, be careful. Make sure the doors of your church, make sure the doors of your heart are open to everyone, regardless of how they look. This is take 5, so I'm going to end there. Consistency in the way we treat people. Let that be the idea of right now. My brothers and sisters, don't be partial as you live out your faith. May that apply to your life right where you are today. I'll see you tomorrow.